Welcome back, guys. This is going to be a long video. It wasn't planned to be a long video, it's just going to work out that way. We have a bit of a problem. So the blue truck, the spare parts truck, which I've been driving for, I don't know, the last 12, 18 months. Seems like I've been driving it forever. Drove it right through winter with no heater. It was fine the summer before that. Winter wasn't particularly pleasant. It's got a lot of problems, and it's got some new ones which are end of life, I believe. So yeah, we're going to drag out a truck I bought 3 years ago, parked in the drive because it had a problem I couldn't be bothered dealing with, and then just kind of forgot it was there despite driving past it every day for the last 3 years, in and out of the driveway. But yeah, it's time to resurrect it, see what we need to do to get it running again, and start enjoying it. And the blue truck, well, I think it's time for its retirement, which is a shame. It's actually been a really faithful, reliable old truck. I did only buy it for parts. I never intended to actually drive it that much, but it's been a daily driver for a good long while now, and it's done very well. But it's got 460,000 Ks on it. I think it's earned a retirement. I could keep driving it to destruction, but that just seems a little bit unfair to it. So yeah, we're going to retire it. I'll either find a new home for it, or we'll use the parts off it to keep the other ones running, which was what it was originally intended for anyway. Alright, just loading up the truck for a mission. Gonna go and get a toy. You're not coming. You just think you're coming. The other one's coming. Where is he? There he is. What are you doing, Arthur? You coming? Yeah. Well, we're heading south now. Finally made it south of Christchurch. On our way to Belclutha. And we've got a few hours to go, so quite a bit more of this. Alright, I'll give this a go. I don't know how this is going to work while I'm driving. I'm just sitting on the dash. So we bought a new toy because 4 Landrovers is never enough. And yeah, I priced having a truck go and pick it up for me and dropping it off home, but I think the amount of diesel I could buy for that, we could do the trip about 4 times. And look, I mean, that's fair. I'm not begrudging the guys a decent wage for doing it. They've got to take their hourly rate into account, and wear and tear on a commercial vehicle. But you know, it's a road trip for me and Wolf. He's just sound asleep on the seat beside me here, so I don't mind a wee bit of driving. It'll give me a chance to catch up with some family in Dunedin, which is the main city on the way through, if you're not familiar with the South Island of New Zealand. So yeah, should be a good wee trip. We're going to stop for the night, depending what time we get there. We're going to stop at a little campground at a place called Wainakarua, which is a bit special to me for a couple of reasons, but it's actually a really nice spot. It's a dog-friendly campground, and it's not terribly expensive for the night. We got really good showers and good facilities. We are towing the big trailer. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it out the back. Possibly not. You can just see the tail end of it back there. It tows pretty well for a big trailer. It's a triple axle. My dad inherited it with a block of land that they bought from a guy who left the country. I don't know whether he built it or bought it. It's a beast of a trailer. It's very heavy. It's reasonably wide, but not quite wide enough. As we'll possibly see when we put the disco on it, another 20mm wide would be really useful. Right, so I'm going to see whether we can make it to Wainakarua tonight. If not, we might just keep driving through the night and get a bit further south and a bit closer to Balclutha. So it's about 6:30 in the morning. I've got a whiny dog beside me because I've just got breakfast and he wants in the packet. I was a wee bit over optimistic that we'd get to Wainakarua because we didn't even get close. We were well outside their normal rock up hours, so just found a quiet spot and had a kip for a few hours. So got my coffee, got the whiny dog. There he is. Say good morning, whiny dog. Is that it? Is that all you got to say? Yeah. He's sour. I'll have to give him a wee bit of this and we'll do this all the way. Alright, so we're back on the road. We're in a wee town called Mosgiel, just south of Dunedin, and we're off to Balclutha. So, see you shortly. Alright, well there it is. Didn't want to film on there, it was a working farm. So yeah, we'll stop and have a good look at it at a little point down the road. It's looking a little bit cockeyed on the trailer at the moment because, as I mentioned, the trailer's not quite wide enough. Anyway, I'm going to hit the road and go and find some real coffee and head for home. It's going to be about a 5-hour drive. Alright, so here she is. Mambo number 5. Landrover number 5. Number 5 is alive, but
you're not in top form and your backup battery's used up.
I'm okay. Hey, just a few bitty Bugs Bunny to work out in. Perfectly functionality.
It's lived on a dairy farm and there's everywhere. And this is after he hosed it off. It was still all wet around it from clearly being hosed off with a decent dairy farm fire hose. We've got a bit of a leak here, and I'm not sure, but I think that that's a coolant leak. It was dripping out pretty fast. I don't think that's just water from it being washed. I think that's actually coolant coming out under pressure when the engine's running. So I need to check that. So anyway, it's got good tyres on it. Maxxis Bravos, they're okay. Decent amount of tread in there. When I got my silver truck, it was covered in green slime. And this one is also covered in green slime. I've never seen any other Land Rover like it. 2 silver trucks, both covered in green slime. I don't know what the story is there, but we'll figure it out in the fullness of time, I guess. It's going to need a really good clean. And you can see the problem that I mentioned earlier. They don't really fit. They snuggle in if you force them, and this rear axle will probably drop in at some point, at which point all the strops will come loose. So I'll need to be on the ball and keep an eye on that, but I'll be taking it slow on the way home because I can already smell it getting a bit warm pulling up through here. So, serious diesel leak in the back though. The lines from the tank have rubbed through, but he bought them, so they're in the back. We'll pull that out and have a look later on. He actually bought new lines for it, he just never fitted them. So that's it. It is a 2004, so it's the very last of them, the Tempest engine, the EU3, with an automatic. They either forgot or neglected to mention in the advert that there was an automatic transmission issue when I've gone to pick it up, and said you might want to consider that before you take it away. To which I said I've driven 6 hours over 2 days to get here. I'm taking it home, but are you negotiable on the price given that that is a thing that wasn't mentioned? And they were, so he took some money off for that, which I really appreciated. I'm not sure what I would have done if he hadn't knocked it down a bit, given that they hadn't disclosed that, and the transmission is really what I bought this truck for. So I have a manual one, as you're probably aware. Basically identical, it's an 02 not an 04, but Nikki, the darling little short ass that she is, in order to drive the manual has to have the seat right forward so she can reach the pedals, but then she can't really, it's really awkward to reach the gear lever when you push right forward, so she likes it, she just can't drive it that well. She will drive it, and she does drive it, but an auto will suit her a lot better. So yeah, apparently the transmission will shift into high, but it won't knock back down again, so we'll have a look at that and just see what the actual problem is and how we're going to attack it. He does have a full filter kit that he bought for it that hasn't been installed either, so, and that includes the transmission filter and gasket, so we'll see if a flush fixes it. If not, we'll work out what we need to do. Anyway, there she is, and here we go on the road. So fast forward to the present day, and here we are. It's been sitting in the drive for quite a while. And I pretty much parked it here and I thought, I'll get to it. Well, this will probably give you an idea of how long it's sat here. This level of Walking Dead prop appearance that it's got, and yeah, it's become a shed. It's become a home for spiders. The brakes are going to need a clean. They'll probably get cleaned off on the first run. Smells a bit like strawberries inside. I think it may have been vaped in. The inside's pretty clean. Head lining's a bit drooped. There's a bit of stuff in here. More stuff in the back. Spiders everywhere. Have to evict a few of them and keep a few. It's full of mud. Did come from a dairy farm after all. Just bits and pieces. Yeah. It's kind of looking like that old Series 2A half body in the paddock next to us. It's going to take quite some cleaning. This side has been facing the trees and is really bad for it. Silver or green? Man, this is one for the detail geek, not for me. Yeah, the door's still open fine. Door jambs are a bit spidery. And a lot of spiders in here, and they're quite big spiders too. But kind of like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy description of Earth. Mostly harmless. So it is an 04, it's got the updated dash and all the bits and pieces. It should have a centre diff lock. And quite a bit of growth. I won't be winding those windows down till it's had a really good clean. Let's see what spiders await in here. Interesting, that looks like a dead spider. Maybe the word got round, all the spiders have run away for the moment. It'll be a fun cleaning job. Anyway, it is what it is. It was clean-ish when I got it, but it has sat for years and now needs some work. Alright, so I've rustled up some tyres for it, for the front. This had, as you saw, local kids going for a blat down the street. So as you saw, this had no front wheels on it. It did have a set of Maxxis Bravos on it. I actually took those off and put them on the blue truck because I got one flat tyre in the blue truck, followed by another flat tyre, followed by another flat tyre, there's smoke coming out of there, and there's smoke coming out from under there. So I basically stole the tyres off this and I've been running them on the blue truck. They're going to come back onto here, but for now I just want to get it mobile so I can actually fix it, and once it's repaired I'll worry about the details then. For now let's just get it rolled back to a sensible spot where I can actually start working on it. I was just thinking that all my winches which I used to get the Series 2A up onto the trailer are in the back of the silver truck, or the other silver truck, which Nicky's got today, so I have no winches. And then I realised I do have one winch. Okay, I've done some research and I know that there's only one leaking fuel line. I didn't know which one it was. I now do, and I know that this kit is quite expensive and completely unnecessary. So the green line is the one that we need to replace. It's the one that chafes through. It clips out of those two clips, which should be under there already. That's all I've got to replace. What I will enjoy finding out is where the leak is, because once I know where it leaks, where it rubs through, this is a problem. I actually read one guy who apparently had his truck for a while and it had done this. He was onto his third one of these. So I am going to put something around it, probably some self-vulcanizing rubber tape around at the point where it chafes, just to give it an extra bit of padding. And it can be done in situ, I'm told, and in fact if you get lucky it can be like a half-hour job. So this truck sat for 3 years for the want of a half-hour job. Well, we'll see if it's a half-hour job when we're done, but I am under the impression that you can pretty quickly disconnect it and pull it out through the access panel in behind me here, which is going to mean cleaning out the back of my storage shed and then pulling the carpet up, and the carpet might be a bit of a pain, so we'll see how we go with that. But this apparently is all I need. Highly unlikely that we're going to need these three lines. It's apparently always the green one that rubs through just because of its particular routing. So we'll get the old one out, we'll have a look at where that pinhole is, where it's rubbed. Interestingly, the other three have all this extra padding on them. I mean, this one's got spy wrap on it, and then it's got this reflective sort of heat shield type padding on it. And in fact all three of them do. This is the only one that doesn't. There's nothing to protect this one. However, let's get her apart and see how it looks. Alright, what are we going to find? You can't do this on a 7-seater because there's two brackets here that the seats fold down and clip into, but it's pretty easy to pull up in a 5-seater, which is good. Yeah, he's had it out, he's had a look, he's worked out which one's which by the looks of it, because I can see the dust rubbed off the colour bands. So, green one is this one here. So if you're looking left to right, it's white, then green, then blue, then black. So green, second one across. It's very tight there. It feels very tight. There's a bit of a gap. So I guess all we can do is pull the pipe at each end. I don't expect it's under pressure. This truck has not run in 3 years. That'll do for now. Car wash brush, we're going to need that later. And there we go. So just squeeze those two tabs there and then pulled it out. And that should match that end there, and hopefully I can get this green clip off without breaking it, because if that breaks I've got a bit of a problem. I can probably steal one out of the blue truck. Right, got it off. I'm going to tie something to the end of this. That's tied on. Now I'm going to see if I can figure out the other end. That might not be so easy. So there it is in there. It's been undone. It should be on that bracket just above it. So the whole thing's pretty filthy. So I'm going to disconnect the entire thing and get that out of there and put a new filter on it. Squeeze clips are inside rubber boots. Just squeeze it and then work it off, and you can see that's coming off. I'm not going to take that off till I've dusted it. Let's just show you. I'll try and do it without dropping diesel on the lens, because that black connector is dripping slowly, but my luck, I'll probably do it. If we go under here, you can see now it doesn't normally sit like that. It normally sits tucked in above that cross member. I've kind of pulled it down out of the way to get a better angle on it. Over that side where it disappears up under the body, that's where it goes up to the top of the tank. We're looking up from the bottom of the diff here, over the back of the diff. If I lowered the axle, I'd have slightly better access, but if I lower the axle, I don't have access to get in under the truck, so it's a bit of a catch-22. A hoist would be awesome, but I don't have a hoist yet. Alright, I've got it disconnected, and I can't really easily show you where I disconnected it from, but just up above this Watts link bracket, there's a little tab off the inside of the chassis which mounts a rubber bumper that the body sits on, and the two fuel hoses that go up to the engine bay run over that. So up in there is where it goes. I can't see on the tiny screen whether you can see anything useful from there, but basically the fuel line runs with the red one, which is there. So the red one is one of the two fuel lines that goes to the engine bay. The green one is the other one. So that's the only one that doesn't actually come out. So it comes from the top of the tank down and just connects on the inside of the chassis rail and then heads off towards the engine bay. I don't know how useful or helpful that will be, but there's not much I can show you there without risk of damaging the camera, so I'm just going to get that line out and then I'll be back. We've got the line out and the string through. Now what I'm just going to go and check whether I've pulled the string all the way through or whether there's still a bit left, because that would be bad. Well, there's a relief. There's still plenty of string. Now that I've got the other line out, what I do want to do though is find out where the chafe point is. So let's grab the two and compare them. Alright, so there's quite a bit of wear on this hose. I think this is the offending part right here on this first bend from the squeeze connector. That is a spot that's going to have to be protected on the new one. But it does sort of feel like there's been wear along this edge here. Oh, right there. So right there as well, on the same side as the pinhole, there's a very worn flat area there. So I'm going to tape up both the corners, and there's some damage just around this corner here. So I'm going to do some taping on this before I put it back in. That may make it really awkward to get back in, but we'll see how we go. Now, having said this, this is supposedly a common problem, and I believe it was a recall, but it doesn't seem like the replacement hoses have any protection on them either, so I don't understand what the heck's going on there. Just makes no sense to have a replacement hose that is just as prone. Alright, so this is self-amalgamating rubber tape. I don't know if that's its actual name, but it's like a stretchy rubber that pretty much just sticks to itself. And this stuff belonged to my dad. I think, I'm pretty sure I haven't bought any. I actually can't remember the last time I bought some. But I'm just going to use it as a wrap. It does, like it's called self-amalgamating tape because it amalgamates to itself. Yeah, it's basically just when you stretch it, it kind of gets sticky to itself, and then it becomes one big blob of rubber over time. However, this stuff is old, and I don't expect it will stick to itself, and if it does stick to itself, I don't expect it'll stay there. So what I'm going to do is put a zip tie around it. Now it's going to sit that way. This is probably going to be the least obtrusive spot. If it's not, we'll whip it off and put another one on. So that'll just hold the end of the rubber and stop it from coming undone, but that's basically just protecting that elbow now. And I'll do this one too, just for the sake of doing it. I just want to give the line the best shot at a long and happy life. Yeah, I'm not going to go all the way back to that end because I want to keep this end as thin as possible. I think by this point it's out from under the tank and in free air. Okay, so let's get this line in, get it plumbed up, and see if we can start this for the first time in 3 years. I'm almost nervous. I mean, we've got 3-year-old diesel in the tank. It looked like it was coming out of the filter okay. I am going to put a new filter on, as I mentioned, so I have several spare filters. They're the thing I change the least in terms of the filters. Quite often when you buy a service kit, which is the cheapest way to get all the other filters you need, it will come with the fuel filter as well, so I've got plenty of spares. And I've tied it down below and taped it off. So I'm hoping... Wow, that was too easy. I was not expecting it to be that easy. I was expecting a fight. That's come through perfectly. I've cleaned this up well enough for now. I need to poke around inside and find the bolts that this mounts to the chassis with, but for now I am just going to hook it up and see how we go. You've got to push it on, then squeeze the tabs and push it over the flare, and then make sure it's actually on properly, and put the boots back over the connectors so they stay clean. make sure they're all locked on before you apply power, because the fuel pump will just blow them straight off. So at this point, fuel filter's back on, that line is replaced. I need to plug it back into the tank. Then I'm going to throw a battery in it and see what happens. I will take the jack stand out of this side before I do that, because one thing that may happen is the suspension will try and pump up, and because I've got this jacked up so high on this side, it's going to tip it over, and it's also jacked up under the tow ball right in the centre, so I don't want it tipping off stuff. Yeah, I don't know about this bag. It actually looks in good nick, but it looks like it's an olive connection still, which those were the original old style. I haven't seen any new bags with olives on them. I don't know, we'll see what the suspension does. I don't even know that the compressor works. It could be just a dead compressor, in which case, well, the new compressors for these are just too expensive. So I'll be manual airlines, and may in the future come up with a automatic ride height system, probably Arduino controlled, but for now I'll do what I've got on the blue truck. In fact, I'll take the lines off the blue truck. I've just got a length of 4mm line with a air connector on the end that I can hook a compressor up to and just pump it up to roughly the right height on each side, tuck the air lines out of the way, and they don't seem to go down. It was at least a month ago that I put air in the suspension of the blue truck, so it works. You just lose that automatic ride height and the ability to pump it up for off-road. Realistically, I don't think this truck's going to see much off-road other than just paddock work at hay season and other times, so it'll be fine. It'd be nice to have it all controlled by the ECU or the body control module. Yeah, what else do we need to do? Okay, let's get that line in. Alright, let's see what happens. Battery's hooked up. Gave a little spark, and it didn't actually, like sometimes it'll set the alarm off when you put the battery in. But it's dead silent, and key's working, so So that's the sound of the fuel filling the filter and priming the system. Right, it's timed out, so I'm going to give it another shot by depressing the accelerator pedal fully and up 5 times. Sounds like it's bleeding air out of the system. No leaks that I can see, which is good. I'm going to do that one more time. Sounds like it actually kicked in again itself. It's going from that noise, which I think is air, to quiet like it is now, which is no air, and then back again. I forgot how many Ks this has got. 251,000 Ks. That is by a very long margin the newest or least used vehicle I've got. Alright, let's see if it'll start. Actually, before I start, I'm going to check the oil. Alright. So, I want to check this because it's sat for 3 years, and I actually don't know if I ever checked it. I don't know if I've ever checked it. It might be the first time I've ever checked it. And holy crap. Okay. You can see the 2 notches. It's well over full. Now, that could be a bad thing, or it could be just over full. It doesn't sound like the previous owner was particularly mechanically minded, so he may have just put oil in it when it didn't need it, or there could be something else in the engine lifting that oil level. So I am going to attempt to start it, and I'm going to run it for a few seconds, and then I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to check the oil again and see if the oil looks weird, because it looks nice and clean, which probably, like I imagine some of the particulates have fallen out of suspension, and the particulates in the oil could quite conceivably have just settled out over 3 years. So I'm going to crank it over, you watch, let me know if anything catches fire. Matt from Diesel Creek would say, contact. Holy crap balls. 3 years sitting here doing nothing, and God knows how long it hadn't run before that. I mean, it stuttered a bit, and I would say that was probably just air in the lines as much as anything. It just fired straight up, and it sounds really quiet and good. Holy crap. I was not expecting, I was expecting to have to fight it a little bit to get it started, and I was expecting it to be quite rattly. Wow. Sorry I have mistreated you for 3 years. I think you're probably a better truck than I deserve. That's still looking really clean on the dipstick. I wonder if he gave it an oil change before selling it. It's much lower on the stick now. It looks clean. It doesn't look like it's got anything in it. I'll just say, I'll give it a sniff test. See if I can smell diesel on it. That's the only thing I think that would raise the level and make it that clean. It smells of nothing. It doesn't smell of old diesel oil. It doesn't smell of diesel. It smells of nothing. And the level has gone down. Now the truck is tipped back a little bit, so it could be just that it's not sitting level, but I'm good. Right, coolant. I think we have a coolant leak, so let's see what's in the... There's a bit of fluid in the bottom of that. It's definitely low. I'm going to throw some water in there. Woohoo! Oh yeah, I am happy. I am so happy. I can't believe that started up like that. That was mind-blowingly better than I expected. Wow. Alright, let's get the back wheel on it, get some water in it and see if it'll move under its own power. Even quite a bit. Alright, I'd say that took a couple of litres. Alright, let's start that. See if we can get some water circulating. slow. It's running now. I can hear it. It's Bud. Hey Bud. You've been left outside by someone, have you? So it works and it drives. Got no suspension, although it looks lopsided, like it's trying to pump this side up. Can't pump this side up. That's probably shot. That means I've got to find a place to start pulling the blue truck apart and get the suspension out, because that's the only spare airbags I've got. That's not a today job, we're running out of light. So, right, dinner time. So, this old girl is the parts wagon. It's the 2000 model V8 that I bought probably 8 or 9 years ago. Bought it in good faith from a guy in Auckland, that it was a good running truck. It wasn't. It had a fault that he didn't disclose. It cut out on me a couple of times leaving his property, and I think it was a steep drive. I just put it down to cold. I'd never had a V8 one of these before, so yeah, I probably should have got out of it right at that point and just walked away, but I had no way of getting back home other than by bus again, and I'd come a long way to pick it up. Auckland is the other end of the country from me. I'd actually flown up to grab it and was going to road trip it home, and I did road trip it home, but it would randomly and frequently just die for anywhere from 10 seconds to maybe 30 seconds, and it kind of terrified me a little bit on the motorway leaving his place heading back into Auckland, because it did it and I was in the right hand lane, which in New Zealand is the fast lane, and there was nowhere for me to go, so it was just dying and slowing down in the right lane in heavy traffic. Anyway, it got me home, and it got me home after using a lot of fuel, and I don't think it's a lot of fuel for one of these. It was just a lot of fuel when you're used to the Td5s. It's not the most economical of setups, the V8 in these trucks, so yeah, used a lot of petrol getting home. I had a good trip. I stayed with mates and visited other friends, and by the time I got home it was full of stuff that I picked up along the way, so you know, it worked out. It was a good trip, but I paid too much for what it was, and because it wasn't reliable, we didn't really drive it very much. Once it got home it kind of just sat, and then one of the other trucks needed some parts, and as you can see there's a few parts taken off it here and there. It doesn't have tail lights, doesn't have headlights, doesn't have front hub. One of the rear hubs has been swapped out on it as well, so one of the rear hubs has gone on this, swapped into one of the other trucks. So you know, this is a parts truck, and it's got airbag suspension, which has long since collapsed because they do leak out over time. So my intention is to jack the back up here and take the airbag out, and then swap it in on the driver's side rear of the silver truck, because I'm not 100% confident, but the airbags are the likely issue. If the compressor's running normally on these, if it's not inflating, it's an airbag. They do, where the airbag is sealed at the top and then it comes down and it curls under and back up to the centre portion of the strut. On that seam where they normally sit, they do start to perish there, so over time it does just form leaks and they will leak down. That one is not airing up at all. I'm going to jack the back up and just make sure that there is no crack in the line or anything, but it's, in my experience with D2s that I've had, if the compressor is running and one side or both sides are not coming up, it's probably a leaky bag. It could also be the valves, but it's probably a leaky bag. So I'm going to go with the assumption that it's a leaky bag, and I'm going to get the airbag out of here and get it set up ready to go into the silver truck. And there's the bag. A little bit perished, but it doesn't look too bad. Now, normally this adapter would not be here. It's normally just the black line that runs right up and goes into the airbag. But as this is here, I'm just going to disconnect it there because that'll make my life easier. And then don't get your finger stuck like that because that hurts. Oh yeah, I've done this before. Alright, so one clip there, and just lift the metal tab and then slide. And slide it out. Don't lose that because you'll need, well, you might need it. You might not if the clips on the other one are okay. The clips are available separately. They're not expensive. So if you're buying airbags, just buy clips as well. So you just turn that 90 degrees and pop it off, and there we go. Alright, so you can see there's a bit of checking in there. These are definitely old. These are Dunlop ones. They're called Pneuride. With PN, like pneumatic ride. Alright, and here is the offending bag. See, now the weird thing about this bag is that it looks new, and I thought that when I looked at it the other day, and I hope it's not new, because that would mean this isn't the problem, but we'll see. I'll get the clips out. Alright, there's not a lot of room in here to work. Normally you can't do what I just did because normally there's not enough line to actually drop down that far. But I'm just going to cut it off flush, and then I can take this out if I need to. I do hope it's the bag. I'm not actually 100% convinced now because this does look kind of new. The twist lock, there's a tab there and there's supposed to be a tab there. That's broken off, so that's unusual. You can see there's a sort of a hole here with a key cut across it, like a London Underground kind of a symbol. So the two tabs go in and then it just twists 90 degrees and locks. There's also welded nuts on here. That's for bolting down the spring cup if you change this to a spring, and this top piece is just your normal coil spring seat. So you can swap the coils if you want. I don't know why you would. Personally, I love the air suspension. I think it's bloody brilliant. And the system's not that hard once you understand how it works. So let's see if a new airbag, you can see that one's got both its tabs. Okay, let's see if this airbag is any better than what I took out. So face the connector towards you. Should drop down into the tabs. There we go. And then once it's on, turn it 90 degrees. Just knock all this crap off there. Turn it 90 degrees so that the connector faces the rear, and then bring those up into the pins up into the there. Make sure that line's nice and clean, and then just push fit that into the top of the airbag. Make sure it's seated properly. And the clips go on. Now, there's not a lot to see here. It's pretty tight quarters I'm working in, but hopefully you've got the idea if you need to do this, just what you need to do. Right. That's the new one in. Okay, what I'm going to do is actually start this up on the axle stands and see if this inflates, because if it doesn't, I'm going to start tracing the airlines back, because it could be a faulty airline. So, you watch the airbag and the hub, I'll start it up, we'll see what happens. It's the worst that could possibly happen. When you work that out, double it, add some, and you'll be close, maybe. Starts like a dream. Oh yeah, that is inflating. It's inflating. It's holding, but it is inflating. Alright. We may have a winner. What just happened there? Is it not inflating? Let's try that again. This time I'll watch more carefully. I wonder if it's stopped because the axle's now in the right position. Okay, let's move you out of the way. I'm going to jack the axle up a bit. Jack it up. And that bag is actually inflated quite hard now. It did look like it was going up before. I think we're now fully compressed. And it's not inflating. So, okay, could be a ride height sensor. The next thing I'm going to do is put the wheel back on, and then we're going to throw the computer on it and see what fault codes we've got and what readings we're getting from the ride height sensor. Plugged in. Yep, so this is a Nanocom. It's the weapon of choice for a Discovery 2 for the home gamer. They're not cheap, but they work, and the Discovery 2 has a special version of software. It's not OBD2, so you can't just use any old reader on them. You do need this or something with this, the capabilities that this has got. Now, these are great, but they're also shit. The interface is clunky as hell. The CPU or the processor, whatever they're using, is very slow. Everything about it drives me insane. I wish there was something better, or that these guys had some competition so that they made this better, because really it's great and garbage at the same time. So it's locked to a particular vehicle type, so this one is unlocked for Td5 Discovery 2s. If you have a petrol Discovery 2, you can't really do much with it, so you need an unlock for the Motronic one. But most of mine are Td5s. The V8's the only one that I've got, that red one, and it's a parts truck, so I don't care. So let's have a look at slabs and faults. Pump relay, drive short to supply. Now that might be because I had it disconnected when we first powered it up. That seems to be the only one. So I'm going to clear that fault. And let's have a look at the inputs to the system. Self-leveling suspension. Left sensor is 128, which is about mid-range. Right sensor is 88, which is quite low. So power it up on the off chance that it will actually alright, it's going to get all grumpy. Alright, 162 and 149. Both getting bang on 5 volts. That seems fine to me. Like, that suspension has just come up. It was reading 88, it's now reading 149. So, fixed it? Maybe? Bear with me for a moment. I'm going to take the jack out from under the back and let it sit on its own, under its own weight, and we'll see if that shifts. Alright, values have changed to 111 and 106. I'm going to have to get this on some level ground and do some measurements, but I suspect it's probably about right actually. I don't think that's probably too bad. Might just move it onto the lawn a little bit, which is flattish. Yeah, now they're both about the same at 107 and 109. Alright, well, as ridiculous as it might sound, I'm going to call that fixed. It could have been something simple like the nipple on the top of that airbag not done up properly. I'm going to have to do some research and see if that Aerosus brand is a new one or an old one. It could well just have been replaced and not fitted properly. But we appear to be sitting nice and flat and level now, which is fantastic. So I've got suspension, I've got a driving engine, I've got a dashboard that's lit up like a Christmas tree at the moment, which is possibly just because the computer's hooked up to it. Sometimes they don't like that. Let's go back. Have a look at faults, see if there's a fault. Nope, no faults there. Let's go back then and look in the engine, which just looking in the engine's turned out all the Christmas tree on the dash. It really does, it's awful. Airflow circuit logged high. See how bad this interface is? My god, just a tiny little right arrow to slide across. You can't grab the slider and slide it. You've actually got to hit that, and there's like 3 buttons there in that space, and my finger is big enough to hit all 3 of them every single time. This interface is absolute garbage. Okay, I'm going to clear these faults. There's 3 of them. I'll come back and look at them on video if I need them. So we'll see if they come back. Auto gearbox. Have a look for some faults in there, since he did say it would go into high and then... No faults on the gearbox. Okay, well at that point I think we're done here. The vehicle's going to need a wash. I may video that, I may not. I just kind of need to get it done at this point and make sure it's actually roadworthy so it'll take me to work tomorrow. I've got a quarter of a tank of diesel, so I really want to top that up with fresh diesel just to mix any old diesel. It's going to get an oil and filter because the oil's been sitting in this for 3 years at least. It did look clean, but that doesn't mean it is clean. It's going to get a transmission flush at some point. It's going to get probably the diff fluids and transfer case fluids done, and that's about it. I think for now I'm going to swap the wheels off the blue truck back onto this, so it's got its good wheels on it, give it a bath, and then do some test runs. And I might bring you along for a test run. Maiden test voyage. I did a couple of back and forths down our street. Now I've gone a bit further afield, headed off out into the back blocks, and there's a ford down here which I'm going to splash through a couple of times, hopefully start to loosen up some of that mud and dirt. But aside from the auto surging on changes, if you've got your foot down, it kind of just wow 3 or 4 times before it dumps into gear. Don't know what that's about, but I will check the fluid levels when I get back. It seems to be driving really nicely otherwise. Managed to get it up into overdrive. It does that at around about 85 kilometers an hour. Alright, so what have we learned? Well, we've learned that 3 years is not long enough to write off a Land Rover. It has survived quite happily. It started beautifully and has been running fine. One exception, we'll come back to that. I was quite surprised by how well it kicked back into life, but also pleasantly surprised. So this is now my daily driver again until Nikki steals it, in which case I'll go back to the manual one. I've got a bit of a crooked knee at the moment, and that's kind of keeping me in the auto. Not much I can do about that. It's just going to take some time to heal, but I imagine at some point in the reasonably near future I'm going to be back to driving the manual, and Nikki will have this one. Of course, there's the D3. I also need to fix that. That's got a plethora of problems at the moment, so that's coming up. It's either going to be one big video or lots of little videos. This video ran a lot longer than I expected, and if you're still sticking in there, then thanks for watching and thanks for hanging around. We'll have one more part to this video yet, thanks to a little problem that occurred barely 24 hours into driving it again. And it's kind of my fault. Kind of not. Well, you'll get to decide when you see it. Anyway, that's all for now. It's running well. It's getting me to work each day. I'm having a bit of a play around the area in it. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.